This presentation is called Artificial Intelligence and Academic Writing, and it is based on a beautiful paper written on the subject, and the purpose of the presentation is to summarize the idea and the findings of this piece of research. This is where it was published by Elsevier, Computers and Education, Artificial Intelligence, and the title is Computers and Education, Artificial Intelligence, and it is written by 3 authors, as you can see. We start with an introduction, talk about background and theoretical underpinning, research process, methodology, results and discussion, limitations of the study, conclusion, and future work. Before we get into the details, there are some abbreviations that are important when talking about artificial intelligence and education. GPT, Generative Pre-trained Transformers; TAM, Technology Acceptance Model; BI, Behavioral Intention; PU, Perceived Usefulness; PE of U means Perceived Ease of Use; and GIA, General Intelligence Assessment; and LMS is Learning Management System. What is GPT? GPT, as defined, Generative Pre-trained Transformers, commonly known as GPT, are a family of neural network models that uses the transformer architecture and is a key advancement in artificial intelligence, powering generative AI applications such as ChatGPT. GPT models give applications the ability to create human-like text and content and answer questions in a conversational manner. Organizations across industries are using GPT models and generative AI for Q&A bots, text summarization, content generation, and search. ChatGPT, as it defines itself, it is designed for natural language understanding and generation. AI incorporated in education, it can be used for creating tests, for personalized student feedback, and potential education of teacher workloads, potential reduction of teacher workloads, and support of academic writing. It is noted that the limitations of generative AI needed to be understood, and that pushing beyond these limitations in the case of ChatGPT results in references being fabricated. For background and theoretical underpinning, we start by saying that the Technology Acceptance Model, or TAM, is a frequently used model to understand the intention to use a new technology. In its original form, a person's attitude towards a particular technology directly affects the intention to use the technology. This is alternatively referred to as behavioral intention, BI. In addition to the attitudes of BI of a person towards a specific technology are influenced by 2 main factors as depicted in the following figure here. This infograph shows the relationship of TAM constructs adapted from Davis 1985. We have a user motivation with 3 rectangles here: perceived usefulness, PU; perceived ease of use, PE of U; and those construct behavioral intention, and behavioral intention tends us to actual technology use. And of course, X1, X2, and X3 are different uses. In the context, PU is defined as the degree to which a person believes that using particular system or technology would enhance his or her job performance. In contrast, PE of U refers to the degree to which a person believes that using a particular system would be free of effort. In summary, one can state that BI of a person to use a specific technology is based on casual relationships with a person's PE of U and PU of a specific technology, represented by X1 to X3 in figure 1. Active learning encourages students to participate in learning process, and it is defined as activities involving students in doing things and thinking about what they are doing. Active learning is commonly described as a spectrum from simple activities such as writing and reflection to more complex experiential learning. There is a substantial body of evidence suggesting that incorporating active learning into a course with students engaging with material results in better student outcomes. Writing is a primary means of formal communication, and academic writing skills serve not only as a medium for articulating knowledge and comprehension within a student's field of study, but it also as a framework for constructing and presenting sophisticated arguments and hypotheses. The proficiency in academic writing is tantamount to the ability to engage in critical thinking, synthesize research findings, and evaluate scholarly discourse. Academic writing characteristics require the development of several key characteristics. These characteristics were identified from the existing academic writing skills course material, which was based on a variety of resources, and you can find this in many different references used to teach academic writing, but here they have their own articulation. Number one is clear structure and flow. The first characteristics, we call it C1 of academic writing, identified was the need for a clear structure and flow. The structure of writing is closely related to the type of reports students are required to produce. If the type of report is based on empirical data, the structure will be different from a report that is based on primarily on arguments. C2, evidenced and referenced. The second characteristic is that academic writing should be evidenced and referenced in the sense that this evidence can take a number of forms. It may be primary data supporting research arguments, could also be mathematical proofs, or it could be literature supporting the research arguments. When citing literature, it's extremely important that the cited sources are valid and of high quality. Usually most easily assessed based on the reputation of the author or the journal. Number 3, C3, is critical insight. The third identified characteristic was the need to show critical insight. Rather than re-originating the opinions of others, students should be reading literature, considering the implications of literature and expressing their own opinion on the topic in their writing. C4, balanced and unbiased. The fourth characteristic, C4, says that good academic writing is balanced and unbiased. Academic writing should consider all available evidence. When there are contrary opinions, clear reasoning should be given as to why a specific opinion is valued over another. These four characteristics is closely related to the second and third characteristics mentioned previously. C5, conciseness. The fifth characteristic is conciseness. Well-written academic text is clear and to the point. It should be simple to read and easy to understand. Overly complex language and verbose or imprecise text are inappropriate for academic writing. C6, objectivity. Defined, identified, related to objectivity and phrasing. The writer needs to present arguments in the third person as often required by the computing discipline. The writing should also avoid emotionally laden words or terms when presenting evidence. For instance, in his fantastic paper on is considered not objective. Formal tone is C7, where writing needs to have a formal tone in addition to being related to fifth and sixth points above. The text should avoid contractions and colloquial expressions. It should avoid rhetorical questions. After finishing the review of the 7 technical writing characteristics, we discuss research process. The whole paper is based on interventions, and this is the process for intervention. Students to develop an understanding of the limitations of ChatGPT on academic writing. Students realize that additional work is required to determine if the output of ChatGPT is consistent, and both facts and supporting references provided by ChatGPT require checking. And through his own work, under the umbrella of active learning, students uncover the limitations of ChatGPT application. There are 4 stages to the intervention. These are stage 1 to stage 5. Stage 1 essay creation. Stage 2 pre-intervention survey. Stage 3, intervention and essay evaluation. Stage 4, reflection. And stage 5, post-intervention survey. There are 2 surveys, one pre-intervention and the other is post-intervention at the end of the stages. And this table 1 shows a prompt that the student gives to ChatGPT. And they have 3 programs: cybersecurity, digital forensics, and applied data science. And for each of the degree programs, there is an essay prompt. Like, for example, write 1,000 words with at least 5 in-text citations and references on the challenges of malware in cybersecurity. And we have similar prompts for the other 2 degree programs. For stage 1, an overview and demonstration of ChatGPT were presented to the students, explaining the intended task and briefly outlining the features of ChatGPT. The task is generating the essay. Students use one of the prompts described in the previous table, and students may add these prompts. Repeat the request and ask for inline citations. Repeat the request and ask for journal papers to be cited. Stage 2, pre-intervention survey. Students are asked to complete the pre-intervention survey to capture the students' thoughts on the use of ChatGPT. Anecdotal evidence at this stage was that the students were impressed with the functionality of ChatGPT, in particular those students who had not encountered the technology before. Stage 3, intervention and essay evaluation. Students are introduced to common issues with AI-generated text, particularly ChatGPT's tendency to produce unreliable references and hallucinate information. After this demonstration, students conduct a critical analysis of the essays generated in response to a prompt that they selected, the predefined characteristics C1 to C7. Based on their assessment, students then rate how well the essay met each academic writing requirement on a scale from 1 to 5. Poorly met to extremely excellently met. Stage 4 reflection. The fourth stage of the intervention aims to encourage students to reflect on their learning. Students are first asked to complete a questionnaire on the learning management system, summarizing their thoughts as part of the mandatory monitoring access for the academic writing skills course. Thereafter, they had to write a short reflection to further crystallize their ideas on the issues identified with ChatGPT. Stage 5, post-intervention survey. And this final part of the activity is to complete the post-intervention survey to determine if interventions had impacted the students, BI, regarding the use of ChatGPT. However, this particular post-intervention is voluntary. Methodology. The theoretical underpinnings of this study are provided by TAM, the previously identified characteristics of good academic writing, and an active learning didactic approach. This section discusses the methodological considerations of this research. Methodology includes sample and setting, intervention design, data gathering instruments, data collection, and data analysis. Sample and setting. During 23-24 academic year, the number of students were 173 when enrolled in the course. Participation in the active learning components of the study was mandatory. However, the adherence to the university's research ethics requirement, participation in the pre- and post-intervention surveys are both anonymous and voluntary. The survey was released to all the students enrolled on the course. Intervention design. The intervention stages were aligned with Bloom's taxonomy. Such alignment is a common pedagogical practice for all courses at the university. And for each of these stages, various verbs were included to align with the study by Stanley on Bloom's taxonomy and the associated verbs. Table 2 highlights the mapping of these verbs. Can you see here? For level 1 to 2, in stage 1, we use associated verbs are remembering, understanding, and applying. For stage 2, levels 2 and 3, understanding, applying, preparing, and executing. For level 4 and to 5, in stage 3, analyzing, evaluating, deconstructing, and assessing. Stage 4, level 5, criticizing, predicting, and reflecting. And stage 5, that builds on towards level 6, which is composing, creating, and adapting. Data generating instruments. A qualitative questionnaire was adapted that included 3 main questions, each regarding one of the TAM constructs, PU, PE of U, and BI. Each of these main questions was subdivided into 7 sub-questions, reflecting the characteristics of good academic writing previously identified. Table 3 represents the mapping between TAM constructs, good writing characteristics, and survey question numbers. You can see in this table we have 4 columns. Column 1, characteristic. Column 2, questions related to PU. 3 related to POU, and the 4th column related to BI. And they are numbered accordingly. Testing consistency, the combination of these tests, Cronbach's alpha for internal consistency of the McNamara-Boker test for comparing distribution ensures that the data collected in both reliable and valid for the purpose of this study. And this is the results of the Cronbach alpha values. Pre-test, Cronbach, and post-test, and the numbers, as you can see, are almost around 0.8. This is an additional slide that I added to clarify Cronbach alpha for those who are not very much into statistics, because this tool is a way for assessing reliability by comparing the amount of shared variance and covariance among the items making up an instrument to the amount of overall variance. The idea is that the instrument is reliable. There should be a great deal of covariance among items relative to the variance. And these are the table showing the classification, showing the relation between the value of the Cronbach alpha and the reliability level. As you can see, from 0 to 0.2, less reliable, more than 0.8 to 1, very reliable. Data collection using Question Pro. Data was collected using 2 questionnaires. The questions and the relationship to the identified criteria for good academic writing can be seen in tables. We are going to see tables 5, 6, and 7. Participation in the intervention was compulsory as part of the coursework. This is related to active learning. A total of 173 students participated. However, participation in the research component of the work was voluntary. The pre-intervention survey answered by 159, and the post-survey answered by 95 respondents. This is figure 5, and there is a heat map at the right side of the slide for each of the questions, showing the table shows the number of questions from 1.1 to 1.7, and the question wording is shown in column 2, and the change is shown in column 3. The same thing is repeated for the other 2 things related to PE of U and BI. The results for the pre and post intervention questionnaire were analyzed using the McNamara-Boker test implemented via statsmodels.stats library provided by Siebold and Perktold in 2010. Results for these tests are listed in tables 8, 9, and 10. Additionally, interpretative statistics from the reports provided by the Question Pro survey were used for qualitative interpretation of results. Here, table 8 showing test results in terms of mean, median, and perceived usefulness, Q11 to Q17, and I put some red circles regarding the p-value. And because p-value less than a certain number, which is I think 0.05, means significant. Same thing I did for the p-value to see what happened to questions from Q21 to Q27. The same thing I repeated here. The McNamara test for correlated proportions required that there be only 2 possible categories for each outcome. It is possible, however, that in some cases the outcomes could be classified into more than 2 categories, like K categories. The paired data that results from this type of experiments can be summarized in a K by K contingency table or matrix of counts or proportions, and can be analyzed using the McNamara-Booker test. This procedure calculates power and sample size for the McNamara-Booker test of symmetry in a paired experiments. Results and discussion. The study focused on using an active learning based intervention to develop students' awareness of the limitation of ChatGPT. The aim is to affect how students assess ChatGPT in terms of PO of view and the PU. Ultimately, the goal is to dissuade students from over-reliance and on inappropriate use of AI technologies when writing academic material. A comparison between pre- and post-intervention survey indicates a change in student perception. This is clearly indicated in the heat maps that you are going to see presented by these tables, which highlight the change in student perception of the underlying constructs of the TAM. Perceived usefulness. The most significant changes, as detailed in Table 5, is students' discovery that ChatGPT is unable to locate useful evidence to support academic arguments. Students' realization that training data used to create ChatGPT excludes most high-quality academic material led to a decrease in their initially high PU of the tool. And students have also realized that ChatGPT lacks critical insight in the subject area. And the intervention had a very limited impact on the student perception of ChatGPT as a writing tool. Students continued to value the usefulness of ChatGPT in support of improving the structure and flow written text, and useful in supporting concise writing. For perceived ease of use, the most notable changes as detailed are related to ChatGPT's ease of use in locating appropriate reference material. Many students were unaware that ChatGPT would hallucinate references that sound plausible by combining the names of real authors and journals with generated paper titles. After realizing this, students no longer trusted the output for ChatGPT. However, the tool is still perceived as an easy way to improve the structure and flow of text, and a useful tool to ensure a more concise block of text. According to behavioral intention, which is the third parameter, the impact on students described in the foregoing sections and detailed in Table 5 and 6 indicate that the intervention has been successful in regard to influencing aspects of students' BI. Table 7 indicates that the most notable impact relates to the use of ChatGPT to find evidence to support arguments when writing academic text. The least impact of the intervention was on the students' PE of view and PU in regard to improving the structure and flow of the text and supporting the creation of concise text. This is reflected in the BI scores of questions 3.1 and 3.5. Then the McNamara text, the McNamara-Booker test. From the foregoing slides, results are analyzed to determine if the changes are statistically significant, and this is the reason I put the red circles. A statistical analysis using McNamara-Booker test shows a statistically significant change in several of the underlying characteristics. This further reflected a change in the students' PO of view and PU, resulting in a shift in students' BI regarding the use of ChatGPT for academic writing. The McNamara-Booker test results are detailed in Table 8, which in Table 8, which indicates 3 statistically significant results. Table 910 indicates 4 statistically significant results, and BI detailed in Table 10, which is similar, indicates 6 statistical significant results, and these are the number of the red circles in the previous tables. Discussion. The analysis of the pre- and post-intervention questionnaire indicates a statistically significant impact on student perception. This is further supported by open-ended comments that you are going to see in the coming slides. For the sake of clarity, these results will be discussed per characteristic 1 to C1 to C7 rather than specific questions, e.g. C1 rather than Q11. Pre- and post-intervention. The results and for comparison, table 12 provided a post-intervention percentage for the same academic writing characteristic. The results of the McNamara-Booker test statistical analysis were further supported by various open-ended comments provided by the students on the use of ChatGPT. I myself, because I'm interested very much on infographics, I had a second look at the heat map. This is a heat map shown for Table 11 and Table 12. The purpose of the heat map, the intensity of the color denotes higher value, as you can see. Therefore, for example, percentage in Table 11, students are most of the students are likely, because the column number 5 is darker than the rest of the columns, and a similar indication is shown in Table 12. I myself wanted to present or demonstrate the results in this table using stacked 100% bar charts that, in my opinion, will present data better than the heat map. But this is, again, is my personal opinion. I repeated this, of course, to the 7 academic writing characteristics, C1 up to T7. For C1, structure of flow, in this series of slides, I will concentrate on the answer to the open-ended questions by students. They said, I found it nice to use as a tool to structure my writing. For C2, they said, I didn't know it could be as wrong as this. I have used it often in work relations for cleaning up text, helping me read through my text, but I never really thought it would give me make-up or wrong references. For the critical insight, students say, yes, it taught me that ChatGPT can be faulty if not instructed correctly. Also, the wording can be seen as robotic, which I was made most aware of was the lack of critical thinking, which is vital in making scientific material. C4, my opinion on using ChatGPT didn't change. I will not use it, but I got a better understanding of why I should not use it. For C5, the advantages that I intend to utilize are the AI's ability to quickly output lists of concise talking points on specific subjects, and basic road maps on organizing and formatting essay type documents. For C6, before using ChatGPT for this assignment, I thought that the references and sources would be real. But now I know that a lot of the information is false, and therefore it is important to check the sources before trusting ChatGPT. The last characteristic, C7, ChatGPT gives me the option to look at several different sentences and words that would fit better in whatever I am writing. ChatGPT can also give a better structure and formal use of language. Awareness of inherent issues. We got a comment of the students. It didn't change my opinion, as I have used it before for my IT hobbies. Still, it made me more aware of its inherent issues. Reflecting on heat maps. The heat maps I have shown you, the ones that I tried to show in a different way. When reflecting, the heat map results in tables 11 and 12. Noticeable features between the pre and post intervention include the students' perceptions that the use of ChatGPT to support C1, C3, C5, and C7 of academic writing, relating to the use of ChatGPT to support the structure and flow of writing, concise writing, critical insight, and improving the formal tone of text. The change in C4, the ability to present a balanced and unbiased view, though visible, is not statistically significant. However, the related change in C6 objectively is significant. Limitations. On limitations of the study was the lack of detailed demographical data regarding the participation, and the authors assumed that the students would have had limited to no such prior exposure, and observed output rate between the pre and post intervention questionnaires, which could introduce potential biases in the results because the number of respondents differ from 150 something to 95. The paper focused on the freely accessible version of ChatGPT version 3.5, and it would be extremely difficult to completely prevent the use of AI in academic writing, since these tools clearly have a high PU and high PE of U. Last section is conclusion, implications, and future work. Technology acceptance model highlights users' motivation and attitude to adopt a specific technology. This motivation is affected by the perceived ease of use and perceived usefulness. Affecting either of these factors can increase or reduce the user's behavioral intention, BI, the desire to use the specific technology. This study aimed to reduce the user's BI to use ChatGPT for academic purposes. The implications of this paper implies that a holistic approach is required. In addition to ethical guidelines, students also require exposure and training in the use of the technology. Given the fast pace at which generative AI currently evolves, the specific intervention might not remain effective for much longer. Future work. As mentioned, the limitations of this study is that work was undertaken with ChatGPT 3.5. A repeat of the study with newer versions of GPT will indicate the continued viability of the intervention. In addition, further work is required to determine if the effects of this intervention have a lasting influence on the students participating in the survey.